Beginning transmission. This is the Chaos Community Broadcast, a show about failures and how to navigate complex socio-technical systems so you can surf the chaos instead of succumbing to it. For recording of this broadcast, as well as all of our previous broadcasts, type in chaos.community into the web browser of your choice. I'm your host, James Wickett.
And I'm your host, Casey Rosenthal.
Well, today we're taking a break from our series on the book Chaos Engineering System Resiliency in Practice. And we have with us Christina Yackaman, who is a lead engineer of the Chaos and Resilience team at Vanguard and has spoken on how her team developed their own custom resilience testing tool. And Christina, it's really great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Christina, great to have you with us. And we would love to hear more about your story at Vanguard. And let's perhaps start with what is Vanguard?
Vanguard is an asset management company. So you are probably familiar with us from your 401k or some brokerage investments. But something really interesting about Vanguard's business model is that we don't have any brick and mortar locations where you can go in and talk to an advisor, which makes Vanguard's digital presence all that much more important. All of the transactions that our clients are making, viewing their balances, interacting with their advisors, it's all happening through our digital platform. So IT is actually the biggest division at Vanguard.
One might say you're at the vanguard of Vanguard, challenging the status quo, building more resilient software. How did you get on this career path?
I started out at Vanguard in a rotational leadership program within IT. So I got to try out a lot of different roles in my first couple of years. And honestly, ventured over into what we call the Chief Technology Office as what I thought would be a quick 8-month stint, learning a little bit more about IT infrastructure before running back to the safety of application development the way that I liked it. But I realized at the end of that 8 months that I was still feeling really uncomfortable and never one to shy away from a challenge. That told me that I had a lot more left to learn. So I stuck around, and now 3 years later, I still work in the same department and I am still learning every single day.
And so how did you come into the chaos engineering side of things?
I started working on the chaos engineering team about a year ago at this point, almost a year and a half ago. And it was sort of a natural next step after stepping into an SRE role. I initially built out a containerization platform in the cloud, then was doing the day-to-day maintenance and operations for that platform. And that started to turn into an SRE role. And so we were doing a lot of the typical observability things. We were focused on monitoring and alerting and logs, metrics, and traces. But then we were also trying to harden that infrastructure. And so there was a natural pairing with this very new fledgling team at Vanguard, which at the time was just one engineer and one intern, who were pioneering the discipline of chaos engineering and using this platform that I had built as their pilot platform. So I actually moved over to the chaos team to consult on those first few experiments. And then we went from there, continuing to expand into more and more types of chaos experimentation at Vanguard.
That's really cool. James has a lot of experience with personal financial advising and asset management as well. So I'm not sure if you have any questions along the same lines relevant to your experience in this field.
I don't have experience in this field, Casey.
But didn't you used to run iHeartMoney.com, the startup?
That wasn't me.
Yeah, that was you. Let's see. It's on your LinkedIn profile.
No.
Oh, that's James Wicker. Oh, Wicker. Oh, all this time, I thought I was hiring him. All this time, I thought you were the iHeart Money guy. Well, what have you done of note?
We've done a lot of shows together, Casey. This is, it's one of those things we should bring up before we start filming.
What was the buy-in like in your organization? Was this driven by necessity. So, for example, like a high-profile outage, or a directive from upper management, or was it something that was brought in by the people doing the actual work?
It's been a really slow burn, and it was definitely brought in by the engineers doing the work. Very much a grassroots movement that came from the bottom up. We had just a couple of engineers who were really passionate about SRE, and then by extension, that focus landed on chaos engineering. And we really made the pitch from nothing, from almost no funding to getting to where we are now, which is a team of 6, to where we're going to be next year, which is going to be doubling to a team of 12. And all of that was through, writing some initial white papers, presenting that, getting just a few people on board to buy into the value of chaos engineering. And then from there, iterating and demonstrating value every single step of the way to get that next level of funding out of upper leadership.
So one of the most referenced chapters in the book, there's a book on this, by the way, I'm not sure if you're familiar. One of the most referenced chapters is the one on ROI, demonstrating ROI for chaos engineering. Did you, as you were going through that process and establishing value and fighting for more budget and to expand the team, how did you make the case? Were there KPIs that you could point to, or some sort of qualitative feedback?
Yeah, there definitely are. And that's honestly one of the things that our team has been talking about the most of late, is continuing to prove that we are actually delivering value, and everyone wants to see that direct impact on things like the MTTR and the MTTD, and that's just not always going to be the effect of chaos engineering. Sometimes it's a little counterintuitive for people. Well, if your chaos engineering is having any effect, we should just be more available, right? We should get more 9s. That's not really what I'm here to do. And having to explain that is often then met with, well, then how am I going to know that you are having any impact? So we're looking at things like the number of experiments that are run, the number of different applications that are being tested, the number of different types of experiments that are being run to show growth of adoption of the practice. And then supplementing that with that qualitative data that you mentioned. It's really difficult to quantify that engineers are learning and that engineers are becoming more confident. We've run a couple surveys with, mixed levels of success, but what we do have is that anecdotal evidence from talking to people and them saying, I didn't know it was going to work that way. Hypotheses disproved is one of my favorite metrics to go back and look at. It's not necessarily a success metric because, we were kind of not correct when we set out, but it's a fun one because it's a very clear metric to show, well, we learned something.
In a recent talk that you gave, Cloudy with a Chance of Chaos, you mentioned even just getting started, because I think ROI is a good place, but I think some people are even a step back on that, where they're still sort of thinking of chaos engineering in kind of a naive way. You mentioned in that talk where people think it's just breaking things, or kind of like, well, Netflix does it, but we can't do it because we're not Netflix, or just general confusion on it, or that it's like the new wave of performance testing. Like, how do you have those conversations? Because to me, your story, especially like kind of moving at that number and the rate at which you're doing, that's really impressive. That's really impressive. I think a lot of people would want to know, how do we go from an engineer-led practice into like making this happen? Like, can you give us some tips on that if somebody finds themselves in that same situation?
Yeah, definitely. Scalability of this practice is the latest challenge, because we are still a relatively small team, and now we've gotten everyone excited. Now they all want to run these chaos experiments, but not everyone wants to go read the whole book. But I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to try to convince them that they should go read the whole book and become experts themselves. But a lot of the time, people.
if you want more copies of the book, I'm happy to send you a link to Amazon.
Thank you, thank you. We're doing a book club now within my team, but so for some reason I can't just send everyone at Vanguard the Amazon link and check the box that I trained everyone. That hasn't flown so far with my leadership team. So we're trying to figure out a good way to build that expertise internally and trickle that out to all of the teams that want to run these experiments. So we are focused on a train the trainer model, focusing in these pockets throughout the organization, all of the various IT groups supporting the different business lines at Vanguard, creating those pockets of expertise so that they can go and share that out with the teams that they're supporting. That coupled with some really strong documentation, recorded presentations to supplement the in-person one-on-one conversations that we're having about this has been helpful so far in creating a maintainable, scalable pace for education on this practice.
And I'd like
And when you
to
say,
remind everybody, sorry, Casey, I'd like to thank our sponsor, and I'd like to read a little sponsor here. Are you traveling and need to carry financial instruments that are safe, good everywhere, and self-identifying? Well, for further particulars, write Bankers Trust Company to get your ABA traveler's checks. Thank you.
Traveler's checks? And those would have been really useful back when we could travel. So speaking of travel, so we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. You mentioned one-on-one training. Have there been any particular challenges to that training I assume you're in the New York office?
Our headquarters is in Malvern, Pennsylvania. So same time zone, a couple hours away.
Okay, you're down in Malvern. Okay, that was really close to the site of the battle right outside of Paoli Tavern, the Paoli massacre.
Yes, definitely the most famous battle in this area.
Yeah, well, yeah. So James, that's when the British got the jump on Wayne. Went in with bayonets first. It was when we got word of it. It was pretty brutal. They didn't show any mercy. But I went back through that area when a buddy of mine, Bertrand Russell, and his wife Edith were both teaching at Bryn Mawr, so just down the main line. Those two knew how to throw a party. I tell you, those were some exciting times.
Back when we could party.
Sorry. Back when we could party. Yeah.
For your always relevant stories on chaos engineering.
Well, this was a very chaotic situation that I was describing, James. I feel like that's pertinent. So anyway, any challenges to training or teaching, given that we're now all distributed?
It has definitely been an adjustment. I think that after that first couple of months, there was definitely a big learning curve where you're no longer able to just catch someone at their desk in the office in the middle of the day. And instead, you're maybe filling your calendar with more meetings than you used to just to have those ad hoc conversations with people. Now we're starting to adjust, right? We're getting a little bit more comfortable with handling things in chats and emails or those quick calls. And really, I've found that this is something that works quite well digitally. Instead of sitting in a meeting room, we're just doing things over a video call. And it hasn't been too bad. The thing I have missed the most is having a whiteboard on wheels that I can sketch all over, because my entire team knows that I am addicted to drawing diagrams on the whiteboard. So I keep threatening that I am going to go and buy one of those giant whiteboards and set one up right here and draw that way. And so far, the team has managed to not be put in that situation, but it may be coming.
That's great. I was wondering if it might also be easier to run an experiment without accidentally, without notifying everybody, since you're not all in the same space. And as I like to tell James, defending oneself is a privilege of attendance. So, by the way, I thought you weren't going to be here today, James.
What led you to think that?
Nothing.
Yeah, I wanted to see if you could. I don't want to spoil the people from going to go watch the the Cloudy with a Chance of Chaos talk, which I think is really good, and people should go watch that. But could you give a little more of a sneak peek into the tool that y'all are working on, and like kind of frame it out, like how does it work, a little bit of the mechanics of it, how people get onboarded into it?
So I'll take this opportunity to make a quick plug for SRECon coming up, or if you're watching this later, go back and find the version from SRECon, because that'll be an extended cut with a little bit more information about the architecture. But I'll give a little sneak peek here for the folks who haven't seen it. Our architecture is fully serverless. We're using all AWS. We have a web application running on AWS ECS, a backend built with AWS Lambda strung together with step functions, which are my new favorite thing in 2020 is AWS step functions. And then we have some serverless storage solutions as well, DynamoDB, S3. And so our clients, the internal application teams at Vanguard, are able to go into this web app, put in just a few details about their targeted infrastructure. If it's an ECS app, maybe it's the AWS account and region and the name of the cluster. And then they can inject a fault at the click of a button based on the way that we have set up these Lambdas to do all of the work on the back end for them. We've tried to make it super easy and require no code changes whatsoever for these teams, eliminating that barrier of entry so that they are all the more likely to actually try out this form of experimentation.
And I know she had some weather-related themes in that. How did that come about?
We do. We know that Netflix has all of those primates, the chaos monkey, the chaos Kong. We wanted a theme too. We wanted to get in on the fun. So that was one of the early brainstorming sessions with this team was, well, what are we going to call this thing? And we landed on one of the most chaotic things we could think of, which is weather, especially living in Pennsylvania. We know a thing or two about some diverse weather conditions. So we came up with the climate of chaos. All of our experiments are called phenomena. So you've got things like chaos flash flood and chaos tornado, just to name a few.
Oh, like the Muppets.
Exactly like the Muppets.
Phenomena. Do 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 do. Phenomena. Do 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 do. Phenomena.
Do 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 do. So the team is expanding, the program is expanding there at Vanguard. What's next? What are the future plans for the tool?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. On the technical side, we have some big plans for 2021. The primary one being expanding to support experimentation on another new platform. For the first time, enabling experimentation for applications running on AWS EKS, because teams at Vanguard are just starting to take a look at that platform for running their Kubernetes workloads in the cloud. So that'll be our next big push on the technical side. And there's also another big piece for our team. A lot of the staffing up that we are doing is going to be focused on coaching, on doing that train the trainer, scale out model so that we're able to build more experts throughout the organization on chaos engineering and on SRE more broadly to make everyone just a little bit better at maintaining their systems and being confident in the way that they work.
That sounds awesome. James, do we have any calling questions?
Yeah, we do have two call-in questions. Christina, let me bring in our first caller.
Hello, financial question. Bitcoin's hovering around $15,000 US. When is it time to diversify my portfolio into crypto? Are you long on green mutual funds? Do you see a conflict between those two positions given the fossil fuel requirements to hash the blockchain? And do you prefer the term pyramid scheme or Ponzi scheme when it comes to cryptocurrency?
It's a very financial question. I'm not sure if that's didn't really seem like a chaos community type thing. Feel free to answer.
Well, that is a very good question, definitely very financially based, and I will answer it very carefully because since I am not officially licensed by FINRA, I cannot give any financial advice. So I recommend working with one of Vanguard's fantastic financial advisors to answer your questions. But I can say I do prefer pyramid scheme over Ponzi scheme.
All right, so we got another call in here.
When you are running chaos engineering experiments on transactions, I'm sure some of those transactions are computed from percentages, resulting in fractions of a penny. Hypothetically, is there any way to collate those fractions of a cent and transfer them into one specific account to get those fractions of a penny out of the way?
Seems like a very pragmatic thing to do.
Well, I'll say it's not an idea that I've ever thought of before, and not something that I think is going to fit into our roadmap for 2021, unfortunately. We have a lot of really high priorities on our to-do list for next year, but maybe an interesting feature request to throw into our backlog, and we'll see if we can get to that. But I don't know how that one's going to fly with the senior leadership at Vanguard. I feel like maybe there's some ethical concerns on that one, but hey, that's just me.
Or maybe when you do the chaos experiments and the machine maybe goes offline, you could use that for hashing the blockchain.
That's an idea.
Well, hey, folks, that concludes our show. For recording of this broadcast, as well as all of our previous broadcasts, type chaos.community into the web browser of your choice. Christina, thank you for being on the show. Casey, as always, ending transmission now.